Section 1.5 is about adding and subtracting real numbers. First, I'll show you how to do that using a number line. We went over this last year, but it's definitely worth going over again because we're going to be using it every week in 8th grade. So using a number line, we have 4 plus 6. And if we start at 4 and we add 6, we're just going to go 6 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we end up at 10. So 4 plus 6 equals 10. Now if we have 4 plus negative 6, we're going to start at 4. Instead of going to the right like we did for adding 6, we're going to go to the left because we're adding a negative number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we end up at negative 2. Negative 2, oops. Sorry about that. Let's fix that. Okay. So negative 2. Down here, we have negative 4 plus 6. Starting at negative 4, we're going to go to the right because we're adding a positive number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we end up at 2. When we go down to number 4, we start at negative 4, which is right here. And since we're adding a negative number, we're going to go to the left 6 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we get to negative 10. And I think the number line method is really helpful in kind of figuring out a pattern of what's going on. You can't use it forever because clearly the number line isn't going to be helpful if we wanted to do something like 120 plus negative 87, because we just don't want to make a number line that large, and counting to 87, it just becomes too time consuming. And so we want to have another way to deal with it besides using the number line. And we'll go over that in a second. If anyone wants to know the answer to this, it is 33. Okay, so moving on. First of all, we want to talk a little bit about absolute value. Absolute value is the distance from 0. So if we look at the number negative 6, its distance from 0 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we consider that an absolute value of 6 because the distance will never be negative. Distance is always positive, so it's a distance of 6 units from 0. Now if we look at the number 6, it is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units from 0, so its absolute value is also 6. So you can think of absolute value as being the positive version of any number. So the absolute value of negative 5, and this is the symbol for absolute value. It's 2 lines on either side. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. The absolute value of 6, we already did that one, is 6. The absolute value of 2.5 is 2.5. The reason I'm talking about absolute value is because it helps when you're adding positive and negative numbers. If you were to add numbers with different signs, like negative 7 plus 10, what you do is take the absolute value of both numbers, so 10 and 7, and then subtract, and you're going to get 3. So the answer to this is 3. The reason it's positive is 3 is because the larger number, the 10 in this case, was positive, so the answer will be positive. If we switch that around and did negative 10 plus 7, again, using absolute value, we're going to do subtraction because we're adding two numbers with different signs, and so we're still going to do 10 minus 7, and we're still going to get 3, but since the larger number, the 10 in this case, was negative, then the answer will be negative. Okay, we'll try that a couple times. Let me use different colors so we know we're on a different example. So if I was going to do negative 12 plus 5, pause that, give it a shot. We're going to do absolute value, so 12 minus 5. We're going to get 7. Now the larger number was negative, so our answer will be negative. Let's do one more. If I had, let's do 13 plus negative 18. Again, we're adding numbers with different signs. The absolute value, we have 18 and we have 13. Notice I'm always putting the larger absolute value number on top. So 18 minus 13 is going to be 5. The larger number was negative, so the answer will be negative. So that is adding numbers with different signs. Now if we want to subtract numbers with different signs, scratch that. If we want to add numbers with the same signs, that's a little bit simpler. 2 plus 7, everyone knows that, we get 9. Or 3 plus 2, we get 5. The same thing happens with negative numbers, except the answer is negative. So if I had negative 2 plus negative 7, I would still get 9, but it's a negative 9. And if I did negative 3 plus negative 2, I would get negative 5. So that's how to add things with the same and different signs. Subtraction might seem at first to be a little more complicated, but we're going to do something to make it pretty simple. First of all, let's talk quickly about this symbol here. It's looks like a subtraction symbol or a negative symbol. Truth is, it's both and something else. So this can mean subtraction, as in 11 minus 5. It could mean negative, as in negative 7. And it could mean opposite, as in opposite of n. You just have to look at the context of what it's in to figure out its meaning. Kind of like when you're talking and you hear the word sick. It's like, oh man, that was sick. Maybe Travis Pastrana just did a double backflip on a motorcycle, so that's pretty sick. Or maybe, hey, that dude's sick, he just barfed all over the place. And that version of sick means something else entirely. So you just got to know your context to decide if you're talking about subtraction or negative or opposite. So if you look down here, the reason it can mean opposite is, think about it like this. If n represented a negative number to begin with, the opposite of n would be positive. So if n is negative 7, the opposite of n would be 7. That's why we don't say negative n for this. We need to say opposite of n. Because if n were 6, then the opposite of n would be negative 6. So that's why we talk about opposite. Well, how does this work when we're dealing with subtracting numbers? Well, subtracting real numbers is very simple if we think about it as adding the opposite. So if you have a number minus another number, you just do the number plus the opposite of the second number. For instance, 5 minus 8. If we change that to 5 plus negative 8, so that the subtraction changes to addition, and then the very next number changes to the opposite. So 5 plus negative 8, and then we just use the rules we talked about previously. So 8 minus 5 is 3, the 8 is larger and it's negative, so the answer is negative. Let's do another one of these. So if we had negative 5 minus negative 6, okay, so this subtraction we're going to change, and this number we're going to change. So the first number always stays the same, so negative 5, that subtraction changes to addition. We're going to add instead of subtract. And then that negative 6, we're going to take the opposite of that, so 6. Now this problem is much simpler. Negative 5 plus 6, using what we did earlier, we get 1. 6 minus 5. Alright, that should be it for the video.